Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first time storytelling a broadcast. Now, before I get started, a reminder, I'm going to invite you to visit firsttimestorytelling.com. Go check it out. There's some really great information, and that is where you can sign up to attend the First Time Storytelling Virtual Summit. So I have a great lineup of international speakers coming in to help you become the best possible first time a storyteller. And as soon as you buy a ticket for the summit, you get immediate access to the course. So there's a lot of great value there. So go check out firsttimestorytelling.com. Okay, so today on the First Time Storytelling broadcast, my guest is Ronit Plank. Ronit is a freelance writer, host and producer of the podcast, And Then Everything Changed, and author of a new memoir, When She Comes Back. When She Comes Back is a story about Ronit's mother leaving her twice in order to follow a group during her childhood, which led Ronit growing up without her mother, but later reconciling with her. Ronit is here to share the story of the first time she ever went to a giant community coven Wiccan gathering at a Unitarian church when she was in college. What a story that is going to be. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much, Anne. And I don't know if I should mention it's Ronit.
Ronit,
Just for
sorry.
that's okay. So happy to be here. And I've been trying to get people to pronounce my name right since I was 4 years old. So it's an Israeli name because I was raised on a kibbutz in Israel, which is a kind of socialist work farm. And when my parents were there, they were deciding that their daughter should be full Israelis, not realizing that when we came to the United States, it would not be like American proof. So that's why my whole life, even before I could read or actually spell, I knew how to spell my name and try to help people with it.
Ronit.
So anyway.
And I thought, because Ronit is sweet, and then I still said, it's the default that we go with. That is
I
horrible unless you
know.
say it over and over again. All right, well, Ronit, go ahead and let's frame your story, because there has to be a backstory to how you found yourself going to
My gosh.
such an event.
And I feel like I should say there's always a backstory because I feel like there's always a cause for something. Okay, so stop me whenever you need more details. But basically, like I mentioned, so I was 20 years old when this event happens. But the backstory is that I was raised for my first 4 years on a kibbutz in Israel because my parents wanted to go and settle the land. They're American Jews and they were searching. Later on, they got divorced. We were in the US, and my book, When She Comes Back, which is coming out in May, covers a lot of this. But basically, when I was about 5.5, my mom started getting involved with the guru Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, and she also was searching. It was also the 70s, and she had gotten married young, and she didn't really know who she was. And in her own backstory, there had been a lot of family discord. And so I think that's something that causes people to search. A lot of things cause people to search. So the setting is that I am the child of someone who was spiritually minded and also someone who is idealistic, with my father being, wanting to farm the land in Israel and create a new place to live. So my mom dropped my sister and I, my younger sister, off in New Jersey, where my father had moved from Seattle, and she went to India to follow this guru. And she wouldn't come back for about a year. And then when I was almost 13, she left again for the guru in Oregon, which had, he had an ashram in Antelope, Oregon, which was featured in the docuseries Wild Wild Country. So this is kind of the background. And in the meantime, in the weekends when I did see my mom for a couple of years, she would read my tarot cards, and she would, we would talk about psychics, and she would talk about how when she was in India, she read tarot cards to make her rent. And so for me, crystals and scarves and incense and beautiful candles were just sort of part of the backdrop they were part of my mom's personality, and I then wanted to have them for myself. It was just something familiar. And even when I graduated high school, my mom's gift to me was a psychic reading from like a professional psychic in Seattle. So I wasn't unfamiliar with non-traditional spirituality, but I am Jewish, and I was bat mitzvahed, which is a coming of age ceremony. My father was a typical Reformed Jew, very New Yorkie, and we went to a synagogue. And so in that sense, I was really typical and Jewish. But the spiritual searching and the searching for a place and for something bigger than me was kind of in keeping with the age, like being 20 and trying to figure out who you are. So I was senior year of college at upstate New York, SUNY Binghamton. And I was searching, and I had just come back from a semester abroad in Israel. And I remember not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I loved animals. I wanted to act. I was always in theater, and I was always volunteering at a zoo in Seattle. But I was not sure about who I was and what my next moves were going to be. And there was a post in the student comments, which was like a message to me. It was sort of that moment of, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. There was this notice in handwriting on white paper with those little tabs that you pull off with a phone number on the bottom that we don't see as much anymore, but because everything's digital. But it said, student coven forming, student coven forming. And I thought, oh my gosh. And it said, learn Wicca, become part of, a Wiccan community. And I thought the message was just for me. I thought, this is the spirit or goddess reaching out to me in college in Binghamton, New York, upstate New York, telling me what my next move is. So I ripped off one of those numbers and I called them immediately, and I found out where the meeting was going to be. And I went to this student coven, and it was basically a priestess and her priest, like learning how to become leaders of their own coven. It was a study coven. So me and a couple of other people who were around my age, plus a lot of older people from upstate New York, showed up. Everyone was white. This is like an upstate New York town, kind of a depressed town, depressed economically. And when I think about, I had no car. Like, I took a bus to this house. When I think about it now, because I have teenager kids, like, I can't even believe I did this. And you have to remember, this is before cell phones. I had no pager. This is like, the early 90s. So it's crazy when I think about myself going on a bus at night to some coven that I just spoke to some woman on the phone. So that was strange.
What did you know about Wicca before
Yeah,
you
that's a
went?
good question. I had been interested in spirit and like nature spirituality. I was interested in something other than a masculine or patriarchal type of God. Judaism wasn't calling to me in any kind of like spiritual way as much as it was cultural for me. So like a lot of Jews who are more reformed, for me, it was like, I felt Jewish culturally. I loved Jewish holidays and food, and I loved Yiddish. We spoke Yiddish. We had expressions and stuff. I was born in Israel, so I had that familiarity, but I didn't feel like I prayed to a God. I didn't feel like that was something that spoke to me. So for me, I wanted something bigger than that, something that kind of evoked nature and the seasons and the goddess, so I was somewhat familiar. And I believed in psychic readings. I believed in tarot cards. I believed in signs and omens. I did believe that, but I was by no means familiar with casting a circle, with the 4 directions, with what the different holidays were. So we started meeting. It was, I think, I can't remember for sure, but it was like every month we met and we did these covens. And then there were sometimes higher holidays where we met more often with a larger group. And then me and 3 ladies, one who's my age and 2 who were older, did an offshoot coven, a women's coven on Sundays. And so then we studied on our own. So I was like telling my roommates who were also Jewish in my off-campus housing, like, gotta go, gotta study coven, or gotta leave. I have that meeting with my witches. Like, I was always doing this. Like, they were doing their own college thing, and I was studying, doing my classes, and running off to covens to learn the ways of Wicca. Like, I was excited about this. I had like pentacle earrings, and I went to the occult store and I was doing reading. Like, this to me seemed the solution for my life, to give me guidance and to set me on a track that was just for me,
Okay,
you know?
interesting.
Yeah. And I think, like, a lot of people at that age, it's a coming of age time. I mean, I feel like we're always coming of age, actually. That's kind of what my podcast is about. Like, we never stop growing and learning. But I think for me, I really felt deeply that I would find my place in the world. And when I look back on it, I think too, I was an unmoored person when it came to my mom. I mean, I had divorce in my family. I had grandparents who'd been divorced. My parents had broken up. I didn't have my mom in my life on a regular basis. Something feminine and something, matriarchal was really appealing to me. I needed that and I wanted that. Like, my favorite teachers were women. My favorite, any therapist I went to were women. My doctors were women. Like, I didn't pursue any kind of masculine role models. So this one night, there was a giant community-wide celebration, and my fellow study coven members I thought would be there, but my little witch friends on my Sunday night coven, my women friends, and I should mention that my study coven with my women on Sunday, my little foursome, a lot of times we just sat in a circle and ate. Like book club. I mean, we talked about the goddess and stuff, but let me be honest, we were talking like women and eating I do with my women friends. That's what we were doing. Maybe casting a circle, maybe smoking up a little bit. It was really not that Wiccan necessarily. Okay. So it's winter, dead winter, upstate New York. You have to understand it's completely quiet. There's, the city and the town and the rural area all kind of combined. There's no one around. And actually, not long after this, I would have not long after this, I was followed home, and had almost an altercation on a similar street. This is not a totally safe place just because no one's around. I was used to Manhattan and Queens where people were bustling around all the time. This is 8:00, no one's out. So I bundle up. I tell my friends, it's February. I'm okay, I'm off to that community celebration. I'm going to that coven. Bye. And so I leave, I bundle up. It's freezing cold, freezing upstate New York, February, cold, dark night. And I'm thinking the goddess will keep me safe. I'm on a guided path. I'm going. So it's at a Unitarian church, and this celebration is called Candlemas, which sounds a lot like Christmas to me as a Jew. I'm I'm not so sure about this. I'm Jewish. I don't know about this whole Candlemas thing. I'm okay with the spiritual stuff and paganism, but when it gets really close to Christianity stuff, I start to feel like maybe I'm really betraying my own faith. But here I go. I'm going to the Unitarian Church, and I've never been to a Unitarian church before. And I'm thinking I won't know that many people, but hopefully I'll find some study coven people. I open the giant wooden doors, and in this great hall are tons and tons of white people, tons and tons of middle-aged white people. And, there's a lot of crystal jewelry. There's a lot of patchouli. Every time someone walks by, there's a gust of patchouli. There's a lot of crushed velvet. There's a lot of people I don't recognize. And it's a lot of people. And the ceilings are high. There are these really high wood beam ceilings, and it's dark. And I'm looking around, and, I'm 20, and I'm thinking, well, I may not know anyone, and I feel really awkward, but I'm doing it for the goddess. It's worth it for me for my new practice. And all of a sudden I hear drums. I don't know where they're coming from. There's a drum beat that starts. The lights get a little darker. I'm I have no idea what's about to happen. I really don't know what's involved in this ceremony at all.
There's be a sacrifice.
Yeah. I actually am shit. I'm a 20-year-old woman. I am in a group of strangers. I have no idea what's happening. I think this is a pretty safe, spiritual practice, but I actually don't know who these people are. Nobody knows exactly where I am, and I'm swimming with all these people. And you have to also understand that I don't like crowds, and I hate public dancing, which I should mention. So I hate dancing in public. I've always hated it. And anytime my mom took me to parties with my sister when she was in town, and there would be dancing, and the adults would come by and say, "Hey, why don't you dance?" I'd be get away from me. Like, I'm not going to dance around you. I'm a kid and I don't like public dancing. So that's a whole nother story. But so there I am in this giant hall, and the drum beat starts. There's like drums happening, animal skin drums happening over to the corner, and people are starting to kind of move around. And a circle is forming, a giant circle is forming. Everyone is kind of moving out from the center and forming this giant circle. And I don't know anyone. So I just sort of like, bob my head a little bit and move into the circle, moving around, like looking around. Drums are getting louder and louder. People are starting to like undulate a little bit. People are starting to clap a little bit. I'm like, I have no idea. And all of a sudden, at the side of the room, into the circle comes this man, this bare-chested man in like black tights, and he's like, he's like half naked, and he's sort of like dancing a little bit, and they're like whooping and catcalling him, and I'm like, what's happening? And I have to also point out that he's kind of cute in a kind of an upstate New York way. There's a little bit of a mullet happening, and he's pale. And I'm like, I'm like embarrassed because I'm staring at this guy that all these older people are staring at. And I know they find him like sexy. And I'm like, this is so mortifying, but I also think he's kind of cute. He's got like a wax chest and a mullet-ish, and he's pale, and he's kind of like smiling in this devilish way. And he's wearing black tights, and I don't know what's happening. And he's like dancing, and everyone's catcalling, and the music is rising. There's more drums. And then he's like moving, and then all of a sudden, we're all clapping, everyone's like clapping and whooping, and I'm just sort of like, I don't know what's happening. He turns around, kind of disappears for a second, and when he comes back, he's got antlers on his head, and he's like, and they're like, ah, because he's like the stag god now. He's like the stag god, and I'm like, and he's like prancing, and he's like kind of kicking, and he's kind of like crossing the circle, and everyone is just kind of whooping, and like, this is the height of, the celebration. And I was like, I cannot do this. I was just like, I cannot do this. Like, this is too much. This is like a bridge too far for me. I was like, I can't like worship, or like, this guy is like a stag god. And, I just couldn't do it. And there was something about that moment, just like, it was like, I'm in a strange place, and there's this guy, and he's representing an animal king, and these people are not Jewish, and I am. And this is just like, I don't know. There's something about this.
Yeah, but it created like based on what you said, it would seem like it creates now this massive conflict, because you're in it for the feminine energy, and now this is all being represented by a masculine person and
yeah,
energy.
yes. And it was also like,
this is not what I'm buying into this for.
no, and it's funny because I feel like my Jewishness kicked in, because it was a little also like a little idol worshiping. It was a little like role playing idol worshiping. And I also was like, I just didn't like the idea that we were all gawking at him either. Like, even though he was a guy, like, I felt really weird. I didn't know, like, are these women gonna like sleep with him? Like, are they all gonna dance with him? And like, who gets to have the stag king? Like, I just felt like really uncomfortable. And I was like, it did get ruined for me in that meeting. I feel like I realized I'm in over my head. This doesn't feel like me anymore. I can't pretend that this feels right. Like, it's too much exhibitionism. It's too much performative, like, ritual. I couldn't do it. And so I backed out of the circle, and I left. I slunk out of the circle, and I made my way to my giant front doors of the Unitarian Church, and I zipped up my coat, and I walked back to my little house that I shared with my roommates. And honestly, that was the end of Wicca for me. I just was like, it's not for me.
Interesting. That's a really great story. But it's also, well, what I love about the story is that you stayed. Everything that leads you to the fact that you're in a place where you're exploring. And in life, you have to go explore. And then you go find out, yes, it's for me. No, it's not. It's for me for a while, all the way until it's not for me anymore. And that's perfectly okay. And the more you are exposed to things, your identity can be so vastly tied to a lot of different things. And sometimes
Yeah.
they're going to come in conflict with each other. Sometimes they're going to support one another, but they're all going to challenge you to decide, to ask yourself questions, to explore yourself. So
And
what
I also think this has like a tension because too, like my mom, you know, it was an interesting separation between me and my mom as well, because I had sort of a cutoff valve. I knew for me that this was no longer something I wanted to follow. Now I am interested in Wicca, like, and there are actually Jewishes, which are like Jewish witches. And I've actually recently become more interested in practicing or remembering a little bit about what I learned before. Um, but my mother, you know, she followed this guru twice. She followed Werner Erhard's Est, which was a precursor to the Forum. She dragged us to all these places. Like my sister and I were constantly sitting on carpets waiting for her to be done. Like we were always around adults on the weekends. We had to be with her, that we wanted to be with her, like while she pursued some spiritual practice. And, you know, she was all into these spiritual practices. And here I was 20, really trying to find something that felt right. But as soon as it became a group mentality, a group think, something that everybody else was supposed to be doing in concert, I was out. Like, and I don't know if I would have been like that had I not had the background from her, but who's to say, because my whole background and orientation had to do with who she was and what I was introduced to at an early age. But I was like, I'm out because this is too much of a group think mentality thing. And I never ever let myself sink into some group mentality very deeply without having a cutoff valve. I'm a very suspicious and, you know, very pragmatic person that way. When I watch things like The Vow on HBO about Nixium, or when I listen to other cults that people got into, I'm like, my bullshit meter is just so powerful and strong because of my early background. And I think that was also not just the masculinity of the stag god versus the femininity I was looking for, but it was also like, I want to lose myself. I want to find something, but I also don't want to lose myself. And my inner Jew, or my inner me, or my inner core of who I was like, that's enough. And there was nothing wrong with what the community coven was doing at all. Like, it's gorgeous and wonderful, but it was just me saying, yoo-hoo, it's time to pull out, you know, it's time to get out of here.
Yeah, like that's and that's as you're talking about this, you definitely bring back memories of my own mother, because not to the extreme of yours, but she did the same thing where she
Oh,
went
wow.
all in into different spirituality, and there were a lot of crystal, there was a lot of meditating, which now, you know, some of it, especially meditation, you know, the sciences behind it of how good it is for you, but she had a lot of different things, and she brought myself and my brothers into that, and to some extent I bought into it until I didn't anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had my own version of it, and then that failed. And then, you know, ultimately for me, I did give my life to Christ and become a born again Christian, and now that's been over 10 years, and that's where I'm at home with that. But I'm not at home with it the same way that a lot of people are. I don't belong to a church. Like, it's still a very
You found your
one-on-one,
own version of the spiritual
exactly,
practice.
one-on-one relationship with God, but
Right.
understanding that relationships was something that was missing from me, that I was
Mm-hmm.
not able to do until I found God. And then he taught me about relationships. So it's very interesting, you know, for the people that are listening, whether it's Ronit's story or, you know, bits and parts of mine, it is the exploration of those things, and it is a process. And I think it is good to not buy in up front, but to question. And I don't just mean on faith, I mean in your politics, I mean in
Sure.
everything. Don't just
Yes.
challenge your own views of those things.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think I always do that. And I'm reticent to buy into anything all at once. And so I do my research, I check it out. And then that's why now I'm following some pages on Instagram for Jewishes. And I'm sort of interested again in how can I meld my own sense of spirit and what I'm maybe missing with my Jewish background and my own pragmatism and sort of some spirituality, which I guess I must be missing right now because, I'm getting older and I haven't been practicing anything for a while.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, I could definitely, this is such a fascinating conversation. I could talk about that for
I want to hear about your story one day too. You'll have to come on to my podcast.
But that was an awesome story. So before we start playing the first time lightning round, how can people get in touch with you? Can they pre-order the book?
Yes. Thank you so much for asking. So the book is called When She Comes Back, and it's a memoir, and Motina Books is publishing it on Mother's Day of 2021 because it's a coming of age memoir that takes place in Israel, in India, in Queens, in Seattle. And it is about our relationship, my mother and my relationship, but how also in the course of losing my mother, I lost a close and trusting relationship with my father because I became the only kind of lady figure in the house. And then I ended up reconciling with my mom, who's in my life now. And I think what sets it apart is probably that my mom and I have a really good relationship now. And a lot of people have wondered how that happened. So I try to talk about that a little bit. And so people can find that on Amazon When She Comes Back. It's in pre-order now, but eventually it'll be on audiobook and hardcover, or rather soft cover, and Kindle. And my website is ronitplank.com. So it's just my name, Ronit, plank, like a piece of wood.com. And you can find links to my podcast there, links to all my other writing. And my podcast is And Then Everything Changed. And it's every week on all the major podcast platforms. And I'm on Instagram at Ronit Plank. I'm on Twitter at Ronit Plank. So please follow me. I love to engage with my listeners and I love to learn, and I'd love to, follow you back too.
All right, fabulous. Thank you. All right, so it is time to play the first time a lightning round.
I'm so excited. So wait, to remind me how I do it. This is
I'm gonna go over it. Yeah. So the way it works is I'm gonna ask Ronit 10 different first time options. If it's something she's done before, she's gonna say up. So it's similar if she was on the 365 First Challenge, we swipe up. If something you've never done, not interested, left. Something you'd never done, would like to do, then we swipe right.
So is it my left or just tell you?
You can just say it. Yeah.
You see my head? Okay, so left is, I literally have no brain for this. So left, I know what up is. Up is I've done it.
Yeah. Left is never done it, don't want to.
Okay, got it.
And right, never done it, would like to. Okay. First one, well, I already know the answer now, but travel to Asia.
I would like to do it. Right. I haven't done it, but I'd like to do it. Right.
Doesn't India fall under Asia?
I've never been.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's a right. Great.
My mom went.
Okay. Next one, ride on a Segway.
No, left. No. God, I'm not an idiot.
What?
I would be the one who fell off of the Segway. I haven't mentioned yet, but I'm completely uncoordinated. I would be the one who had injury. I would never do that.
Okay. I've never done it, but I would totally do like a Segway sightseeing tour or whatever.
You would?
For the novelty of it, of course.
Okay.
Okay. Next one, play water polo.
Okay. I've never done that. I will say right because I will be open-minded. Maybe I would be okay at trying that.
Okay.
Oh my God, I'm going to be the most boring person who ever played this. I don't want to try anything and I'm afraid.
Oh, well, it's about stepping out of your comfort zones and facing your fear. Okay, next one, get a hot stone massage.
Oh my gosh. All the time. Up. Love it. Love it.
Do you remember the first one?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember the first one, but I loved it. It's years now because I'm a hot stone massage believer.
Okay.
Do you like them?
I've never had a hot stone massage. It's actually on my list.
You'll have to go.
Yeah.
Anytime we get out of COVID and you get to go somewhere anytime that has any kind of spa, just go for it.
Go for the hot stone massage. Okay.
Yes.
Find a 4-leaf clover.
Oh, interesting. I think I have seen one. My kid found one a long time ago. So yeah.
Okay.
Up. I'm going like this. Up.
Sing karaoke.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So up. I used to do
up.
musical theater. I'm like the karaoke hog. Like, I love it. I would do it right now with you. Right now, unrehearsed. Love it.
So do you remember your first time?
That's a great question. You're such a good question asker, and I have the worst memory in my whole life. I can't remember, but I do remember singing Toto's The Rains Come in Africa, the Africa song, when I was pregnant, like 8 months pregnant with my second child. And I'm telling you, the kid was not happy with the singing and the loud noise because it was like moving around. He was moving around in my belly while I was doing a duet of Africa in a dark karaoke place. And people were like, what is this pregnant horse doing up on stage? Like trying to hit the high notes. It was horrible.
Definitely got a full picture of that. That's awesome.
I thought I was good until my duet partner was like giving me the high eyebrows, like, what's happening over there?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's karaoke. Okay, next one. Use an electric drill.
Oh, yes. I have used an electric drill because my father, that's an up. My father raised us and he was always teaching us how to build things and be self-sufficient.
Oh, very nice. Go Dad.
Yes. Go Dad.
Play Mario Brothers.
Oh, does that include Mario Kart? Is that like that?
Throw it in.
Okay, I did that with my nephews recently and I was terrible, just like I would be on a Segway. But yes, that's an up.
That's an up. Okay, make kombucha.
Oh, I've never made kombucha. I don't want to do that. I just want to drink it. So I'm going to say left to no. Left. But I drink it every day, but I wouldn't trust myself. Once again, this is a segue, like Mario Kart thing. I don't trust myself to not poison me or my family by making my own mother, whatever they're called. So no, I buy it.
Okay, very well. Last one, do a headstand.
Oh my gosh, this is so sad. This is another segue story, and I can't do it. I've done a shoulder stand like in yoga, but I remember years ago, even 10 years ago, I could never get on my head. And the teacher, I remember walking around, this 80-year-old guy who'd recovered from cancer, and he'd like taught himself yoga and was like this yoga star at this LA studio. He told me it's because I didn't believe in myself, because I didn't have faith in myself, that I couldn't go on my head. And I was like, I know. So I have never done it. I can't do it. It's like a mental block. So if someone wants to promise me that they can teach me safely how to do it, I'll try it maybe. So I'll go for right. Yes. I switched from left no to right.
Oh, well, I liked how you talked yourself into it because you understand it is a barrier, it's a block.
I pivoted here on this show in real time.
And I love that. Which, by the way, the first time lighting around, it's all about the segue stories. It's all about getting more stories out of my guests. But I love that, because why would you want to live with a block, right? It's just like I need someone to help me through the block and the process of doing that. So that's awesome.
It is definitely a headstand block.
So there's a, you know what? I can't. So
do you do it? Do you know how to do it?
No, I need to learn how to do it. And I need to learn it fast, because when my head is upside down, like I get lightheaded very quickly. So it's one of those.
So like this begs the question. This is my sarcastic, snarky New York side. Is like, do we really have to learn how to do a headstand?
It's just one of those, check, I can do it.
Bucket
list. Clearly, well, it's a 365 first challenge item, right? So I'm obsessed with just, and it's not because I need to do it for the rest of my life, but yes, I want to say that I've done a handstand. But so I have the biggest block with jumping over things. I have never been able to jump over a hurdle, and it doesn't even need to be like a hurdle. If it's anything like jumping over things, that's my block.
With two legs or one? Like, are you saying in any way?
Matter.
Like what if I put like a tiny pencil on the floor and I was like, jump over that? Like, I'm serious.
If it's elevated in any sort of challenging way, I have a block with that.
What about a trampoline? Could you do a trampoline?
I'm fine on a trampoline. Yeah, no problems with that. But Yeah, it's so, and then I've done CrossFit, and
Oh,
sometimes I
wow.
can jump up, but like up and over,
Yeah.
not happening.
Well, I used to attribute it to me being like, I'm tall. Are you tall?
No, I'm only five now. I'm 5'3".
Oh my gosh, I thought you were so tall from your picture. So I guess it's not about height, like, because I'm 5'9", and I always am like, I'm just too big to do these things. But I'm just not athletic is the thing. I've never, in fact, when I do certain things that are slightly athletic, my husband gets this funny expression on his face, sort of like, oh, isn't that sweet? And in fact, in college, look, I'm not going to let you get off this recording because I'm having so much fun, Ann. But when I was in college, I remember I was in theater and I never did anything athletic. And one day, my theater, the guy we were doing a play with, he came over to me. He's young. He was my age. He was like, sneakers? Why are you wearing sneakers? I've never seen you in those, because I happened to have like gone on a walk that day, but I never wore anything athletic. I never moved my body whatsoever. So it's only in later life that I realized, oh, I can do certain things. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's making the decisions. Like, just because
yeah,
that's never been my thing, it can become my thing, and I can try it. And it's just, and that's one of the biggest things that the 365 First Challenge is about
yes,
choosing to try it. And a lot of people have scripts. I wasn't good at this as a kid, so I don't
yes,
do it. Well, there's no
right.
reason why now you can't try again and put in more effort and be good at it. Because as kids, we do write things off. We're not naturally good at
Well,
them.
and also I'd say our parents, I mean, I don't know about your
Right.
experience, and I'm
Might
not trying to,
discourage.
yeah,
Yeah. Like,
they have a script for older child, younger child, middle child. They have a script
yeah,
like, oh, well, you're never so great at that, so
exactly. So as an adult, it is making the decision of, wait a second, what are all these scripts? And you know what? I'm throwing them in the garbage can, and I'm rewriting them. And I catch
yes.
people all the time where, well, they'll, and the first time lightning round is a great way to do that. Like even with my coaches, the next level first coaches, were talking about playing soccer, and somebody's like, well, I don't have good eye and feet coordination. I've never had it.
Oh,
I was like, I'm better with my hands, so I play basketball. I never played soccer. And it's like, well, you're an adult now.
right. You
So,
have different skills now.
and your brain will really appreciate you doing movement that it's not used to, and learning things that it's not used
That's
to.
right.
That's the rewiring, and that's how you keep it fresh up in that.
There was a doctor, a spiritual slash Eastern medicine doctor from Japan who I saw in New York. And when I went to see him on my sister's recommendation, he said to me, you need to try to do something new every day. And like anything, like if you do something new every day, then your brain will stay open in some way. It's good for you.
Absolutely. That's what the
Yeah.
365 First Challenge is all about. All right,
Yeah.
so final question is, how have you been making the best out of the current situation with the pandemic?
That's a great question, Anne. I'm going to say something that I never thought would be the truth when it started. Well, first of all, my podcast and my writing has been okay. Like I've been able to continue to remotely record for the podcast, which has been awesome. And all those things can be done remotely. I love that we can do these shows and these recordings without having to be in person. So that's great, except for being distracted by the kids and schooling and all that stuff. But what surprised me the most about the pandemic and how I've been doing is that our family has actually been doing better under one roof than we were before. And I don't know why, and I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and there's something about them seeing me and my husband on the couch at night watching shows and finally like hanging out in a very relaxed way. And maybe there's something just about having us be here without running around that has made us kind of calmer. And I feel like we've been given this time before they become older teenagers and are totally out the door to see them and just kind of be near each other. And I never dreamed that would happen. And I know that a lot of people are going nuts in their houses with their kids. And I know that there's a lot of serious issues being, domestic issues from coronavirus. But in my case, I have to say I'm doing better and okay.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
really great. That's awesome to hear. And
Yeah.
honestly, while again, I will echo that. Yes, I understand that people are having different challenges, but they should be looking to face those challenges, to deal with those challenges, to address those challenges, because the fact that you were too busy, too apart, you didn't communicate, and now you're forced to do that, and it raised
Mhm.
things to the surface. It brings to the surface things that you have to work on, ways that you need to grow, and
Yeah.
no one should run away from that. It is about embracing it and finding how what you just start with yourself, what you need to do to improve, instead of
You.
pointing at everybody else.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
okay,
it's true. I
how?
mean, it's a
Yeah.
big look at ourselves. We're spending a lot of time in our homes, but also in our interior homes, like our minds, like having to like face ourselves. And I have bad days. I have sad days. I have days where I'm like, what's my motivation? Days, especially when the smoke from the forest fires out west
Mm.
kept us inside, where I felt like a sleepy bee. My friend told me she felt like a bee. Like I felt like I was being like, I was like drowsy from, I couldn't do as much. And I was like, what is going on? And I realized, well, I guess is the word grace. Like I have to give myself some grace. Like, I motor through a lot of things, and right now I can't do anything but sit on the couch and watch a reality show, and that is okay also.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have been doing lots of eating the last, I would say, year and a half, and definitely during COVID, I probably put on another 10 pounds. So now it's just like,
There's a
okay,
time for everything,
I
right?
have to get real and start losing this weight, and and that's putting me in some bad mood. And so I'm like, I can't, I'm just hungry. I can't think. I'm just going to watch, I'm just going to watch Amazon Prime. I'm just going
No,
to watch a
for
show
sure.
because
We want to be comfortable,
yeah,
right? Like, I
it's
mean,
just
we want to
like,
go to our happy place and tune out. And I
yeah,
think everything in moderation, and like I'm a big believer, like when you're ready, you're not going to let it get out of hand. You're not going to get heart disease or high cholesterol. You'll figure it out and you'll get back onto it when you're ready. Like this is an unprecedented time, and we need to be kind to ourselves as we push ourselves into new areas.
yeah, fabulous. Couldn't have said it better. All right, Ron, it was awesome having you on. Thank you for spending some time with me on this hump
I'm
day.
so happy that we did. This was great. I love it. I had a great time.